T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
That's right. Thursday Night Football reaction, baby. You get the horns. I'm here with a special guest. If you saw the show last night, got my buddy TRoc. He was on the first episode. Hadn't been on for a little while. Was able to get on last night. Fortunate enough to be able to have him join me. Most of the time when I do Monday and Thursday Night Football reaction, it's just me by myself. So very fortunate to have you in here tonight with me, brother. Appreciate you being able to join in. I think we'll have a good time.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it'd be interesting to talk a little bit about this game and even some upcoming changes happening in the NFL roster here.
Yeah, man. There's a lot to talk about.
Breaking news tonight.
This is breaking. You talk about breaking. This is breaking stuff, right? This is how you break news. Fools could learn a thing or two from what we're doing here on You Get the Horns, and this is consistently.
Right.
I'm telling you, man. Right. Normally. We traditionally have been fortunate enough to break stories days, sometimes weeks before they happen. Sometimes it's just lucky guesses. Sometimes it's been, we've had some knowledge. This one has literally broken within the past few minutes, basically, of the time that we're going live and recording this as well. So we're going to touch on that. We're going to keep the viewers hanging in because first we're going to talk a little bit though about Thursday Night Football, Arizona Cardinals, New Orleans Saints. Look, bottom line, this is not a game that most people were probably very excited about. If for no other reason, the fact it's on Thursday Night Football, which that in and of itself has just been the kiss of death this season.
Just been terrible.
I mean,
terrible,
brutal football to watch. Amazon,
really bad.
Yeah. Amazon's wondering what the NFL's return policy is, on this stuff. Cause this has been a rough one, but I will say of all of the Thursday night games we've had, this was the most competitive, I think you could say. Not necessarily entertaining, but at least they put up points. But they put up 73 total points in this game. A lot of it in the second half and some garbage, scores there. But what was your take on it?
I don't think putting up points is what makes a game entertaining.
Agreed.
And so in this game, I just keep obviously, Cardinals put up 42 points and people they're fantastic scoring offense. There's a lot of weapons there and they're not wrong. They do have some good weapons there, especially in the receiving core. But I look at this, I'm going, man, I just do not know that Kyler Murray one is worth that contract. And especially when I'm looking at this thing going, he 20 for 29. Hey, that's good. That's excellent. Yeah. You had put up 42 points. You had 204 yards and a touchdown. Right. Yeah. So I look at 200, if you just flash 204 yards and a touchdown, no turnovers. So that's excellent. But I just look at this. So it felt like a very boring game. We were obviously texting about some of this. It felt like one of the most boring 76-point performances I've seen. It was just hard. It was hard to watch. They're putting up points, but it wasn't putting up points because you're like, man, this is some serious athleticism that is just one overpowering the other. Right. It's not like the Chiefs Rams game from a couple of years ago where they're just like powerhouse
slugfest
going. Yeah, just going at it. You're like, man, this is like athletic, just prowess on both sides of the ball. Both teams are so over the top. It's hard to stop either one. This felt like the exact opposite. This is like, well, we would just rather play offense than defense.
Yeah.
And say, well, you're
not
wrong.
Particularly impressive offense. Just technically, it's offense.
Well, and I would look at Andy Dalton's performance and go, were there two pick sixes? Yeah, but really neither one of those were his fault. One, he hit the guy in the hands. He just didn't catch it. And it popped up to, obviously the guy there and he runs back for a touchdown. And of course, the second one, he gets hit while he's throwing it.
Yeah.
And so the ball's off, gets caught, run back. But you take those, maybe one bonehead interception, you can maybe count that towards them. But you still go, okay, man, the dude was 30 for 47, 4 touchdown passes, and 361 yards. And so you're like, okay, he did everything he could to put his team in position, except for, you take those 2 pick sixes out,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was a high scoring game, but it still felt just boring. So.
Yeah. Totally agree. It was, is not, I was saying this about the Monday Night Football game, actually, ironically, in my post game on that. This game was, I said interesting, but not entertaining. And, I think that's kind of about where we are with this, in that, it was fine. Look, you're watching the game. Maybe if you care about one of these teams, then it's there's some interest there, but no really impressive plays, or not many at least, right? You're going to see some things here and there, but I totally agree with you on Kyler Murray and the contract. Boy, I mean, here's the thing though, in Arizona, and look, Kyler gets all of the attention and the criticism, and for very good reason. I believe that is very warranted. But this is a team that this offseason extended the contract of general manager Steve Keim, who I just haven't seen what would warrant that. Extended head coach Cliff Kingsbury, who definitely hasn't accomplished anything to warrant that. And then a massive contract extension for Kyler Murray. And so you have all of these people. And here you are. It's like, okay, what do we do as a team? If we want to get out from under this, how do we manage to do it with all of the money we have tied up? Now, of course, we know GM and coaching contracts don't count against salary cap or anything, but the Bidwell family has not been one that's, been shown to just be frivolous with money. For a lot of years, they were a mediocre team because they didn't want to spend money. They've loosened the purse strings for sure. They're fielding a relatively competitive team, but I don't know what you do to change this, because you just extended and tied up a ton of money with these 3 people. And look, the best teams have a really good alignment between those 3 people: your general manager, your head coach, and your quarterback. Those are the 3 most important people to have alignment with. And we know that the organization, the general manager, and Kyler Murray, they're not in alignment. We know that based on what we saw in that contract extension, trying to force Kyler Murray to actually study and, do things. So we know that's not aligned. We don't know. We assume that Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray would be aligned. But you know what? There's got to be frustration when you have an offense that's not working. And likewise,
you saw that on the field tonight.
Exactly.
Where, I'm not sure what exactly he said, but some online were saying that he was just saying that, he needs to calm down. Like, he's telling his coach to calm down.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they trust his athleticism. I don't know that they trust his character.
And his work ethic, for sure.
For the GM and the coach, I mean, what they've done is bring names to the team. Right. So, I mean, you bring in your Marquise Brown, you bring in DeAndre Hopkins, you bring in, JJ Watt, you bring in some big names, and then you're able to re-sign your quarterback. And so I think for them, bringing your James Conner, even though he's injured, you bring in some big names that you feel like can help your team. They're attracting people, they're attracting players, medium to medium high caliber players. And so, I mean, you look at the GM spot, you may go, okay, that's just enough. That's enough to keep these guys in management positions, is just because they're, like you said fielding a competitive team, but they're 2-4 going into tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know how competitive or you just go, okay, well, the upside is there, and they're 3-4. Can they overcome that sluggish start? Well, sure. And
particularly in that division, you have every reason to believe that they could put a run together. Are they a 10-win team? They could be. They could. I'll be the first to say I haven't studied their schedule, so I honestly don't know where they'll come in. But I think it's realistic that they could be a 10-win. I think they should be in the playoffs. Look, if you have that amount of talent on the team and you're not a playoff team, that's when I think you get into some real trouble. My guess is they make the playoffs and everyone stays, but I don't know that that's the right move for them.
Well, yeah, I mean, then you become the Browns, right? I mean, you're the Browns of the NFC at that point, where you have
perpetual.
You have Pro Bowl caliber roster, and you just can't win a game, and you can't get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
So,
and you're just recycling that all the time. And honestly, if you go back a few years back with now the Washington Commanders, then the Washington Redskins. And it was the same type of thing where they would throw money at aging veteran players and tie up huge. I mean, Albert Hainsworth, and these guys tied up so much money into so many of these guys, thinking that was going to be, the difference maker. It never was. These guys, they played, but they were mercenaries, right? They're coming to collect some money and move on. And really, I mean, I think there's every possibility that we have a lot of players that are doing that exact thing with the Browns. And certainly, I'm not going to compare J.J. Watt and Albert Hainsworth. I do think that they're different categories of people. But at the same time, when you have an aging, often injured player nearing the end of his career who then becomes a free agent, jumps and goes to a new team for a bunch of money, they're doing it to sell tickets. And, and hey, good for them, right? This is a business. They need to sell tickets. So I can't knock them for that. But at the same time, you got to understand, you start tying up a lot of money, you got to make sure it's going to the right place, because if we flip the coin and we talk for a moment about the New Orleans Saints, who at this point, I call the New Orleans Saints can't get right, because they're just that team that every year they're 8-9 win team, 10 win team. They always look like they might be around the playoffs and sniffing, but they can't quite make it, or they do make it and they get bounced early. Their head coach, Dennis Allen, is basically like the head coach that everybody hires when they plan on firing their head coach in a year or two to hire someone else. He's like Marty Morningweg was for a while. And so he's like a placeholder for the next real coach. And you got Jameis Winston at quarterback, and he's even injured. You used to have your guy who you thought was going to be the starter and became your second string, Taysom Hill's now playing tight end and running the ball and doing all these things. So it's just they never can quite figure it out. And that's another team that they have talent, but then you end up with these players like you and I were texting about earlier, Michael Thomas. And man, you had some amazing stats and information you broke down for me on Michael Thomas. And we all know a few years back, Michael Thomas signed a monster contract. So if you could, even if you want to just like take it out of the text chain that we were talking about earlier, if you have it in front of you, break down some of that information on Michael Thomas, his contract and his performance since.
Well, and he hasn't been on the field. And so, as we're watching this game, I just posed a question of how much longer, is this guy going to stay with the Saints? Because he hasn't had, post Drew Brees, he's been non-existent. Yep. And so here you have the massive contract that he had signed, and just to keep him on the team, they've been converting his contract into signing bonuses I think it was 2 restructures or 3 restructures they've done with him so far. So, your initial upfront money, and then you're restructuring him to save cap space. And then 2021, you convert another $11 million over to a signing bonus, restructure again, saving $8 million in cap space. And then you convert another $14 million to a signing bonus. So they're clearly.
What was the original contract? Do you have the original contract in front of you?
I think it was.
Was it like 5 years and $96 million?
Yeah, it was 5 years, $96 million, and so he's under contract for quite a few more years here. But you still got to wonder, like at this point. Now, I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of the contract. We were just glancing at it. Excuse me. But I wonder, like, do you do a McCaffrey kind of thing at some point with this guy, and you go, okay, we're just in full on rebuilding. We can get some picks for him. Yeah. We can unload some of this cap space. He's clearly not doing anything for our team the last couple of years anyway. And without a consistent quarterback position, there's no guarantee he's going to get back to that 1,700 yard, receiving 1,300, 1,500 receiving yard range.
If I remember correctly, You said that since he signed his contract in 2020, I believe it was, or 2019, 2020, that he had something like 600 yards and a touchdown since he signed that contract. Am I remembering that correctly?
6 touchdowns, but three of them were this year. I mean, like he said, 3 this year.
This year. Okay.
Yeah. So out of that 609 yards, it was a 5-year, $96 million contract. Outside of this year, he had 171 receiving yards since January 2020. So he moves into this year. You take what he did this year. So he's a total of 609 yards with 6 touchdowns since signing this contract.
And he signed it in January of 2020. So at the end of the 2019 season. So he played the 20 season. Well, he didn't play because of injury, but the 20 season, the 21 season, and now this season. So 2 seasons. And over the course of the 2 seasons, they had 100 yards receiving from him, and then plus what he's done this year. So total since signing that contract in just about 2.5 seasons of play, 600 yards, 609 yards or something like that, and 6 or 7 touchdowns?
6 touchdowns, yeah. And so you're looking at tens of millions of dollars that you're giving this guy, and to keep your cap low and hopefully to be competitive, you're changing all the stuff over to a signing bonus, so they can free up cap space and try to get some talent on the team. But now you have Kamara that's not doing well, very mediocre season. Thomas isn't even playing. Dalton's your starting QB. At what point do you go, you know what? We need to trade off some of this talent and just rebuild, because these guys are, Thomas is only 29. But he feels like an old 29 at this point.
Sure does. And, honestly, I mean, look, we know this. The injuries that he has been dealing with, they're foot and ankle injuries. I mean, these are injuries that you don't want to have for a wide receiver.
No.
That's problematic. And, look, he's a big physical receiver. He certainly has always been a weapon for them. But, man, it's awfully – it's tricky to see what the future is going to be for Michael Thomas. And again, whether it's in New Orleans or elsewhere, because this was the other thing you and I were talking about. Right now, what could the Saints actually get for Michael Thomas? Like, they need some time of him playing healthy just in order to up his trade value, because I was saying, what are you going to give up for him? Maybe a 4th rounder? I don't even know that you'd give up a 3rd right now unless you were absolutely sure that this guy was legitimately healthy. And so you go from having 5 years, $96 million to giving them away for pennies, basically. It's going to be really, it's an interesting position. They're kind of between a rock and a hard place.
Well, what does he care?
Exactly. He's getting paid.
He's getting paid, but what is he even in a rush to come back for?
Right.
It's not like you're running your 12-4, 13-3 seasons like Breeze.
Right.
Where you're going, man, I want to come back because I feel like we have a legitimate shot of making it to the Super Bowl, which, man, I was cheering for those teams. I really wanted Breeze to get back to another one.
Yeah.
But, I mean, now he's going okay, I'm going to get back and rush my health and potentially risk further injury so that Andy Dalton can throw it to me and we can overcome the 2-4 record.
Right.
Now 2-5. So, what's the point? I mean, unless there's some internal engine going I've got to get back. I need to.
And there probably is to some degree, but this is the other downside. When you've had to convert so much of salary into signing bonus, then you end up in a situation where you've already paid someone to do a job. And, there's a reason that any of us, when we go to work, if you're paid, I don't care if it's hourly salary, if you had a $50,000 a year salary, your boss doesn't come in your first day of work, hand you $50,000 and say, I can't wait to work with you for the next year, and assume that you're going to show up every day and be a great worker. Why would you? You've already been paid. And so for him, it's like the longer I sit out, the more likely I just continue to get upfront money because they have to get me off the books. So, I mean, there are business decisions that come into some of this stuff as well.
Well, this is the pushback, the owners have for that Watson contract.
Yeah.
When there's no incentive.
That's right.
I don't know what the number is. I was reading it. I skipped over it earlier today, but they're talking about whenever Michael Thomas shows up at day 3 of that year, he gets a roster bonus. So you get a massive check, a couple $100,000 just for being on the team. like day 3.
Yep.
And so like once you remove all of that, you get this dude a blank check and go, all of this money is yours, no holds barred. Like what like Watson doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that has this chip on his shoulder. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that's like, man, I don't care if you pay me nothing. Like I'm going to go out, I'm going to be the best there ever was, and I'm going to win a Super Bowl, and I'm going to make the team around me better, and I'm going to leave a legacy. You don't strike me as that kind of guy. No. So you give him $230 million and ask nothing of him. And now, of course, we have more allegations coming out that weren't connected to the previous. So it's all interesting. The whole contract thing, you got to feel for the owners. Obviously the players are like, this is fantastic. We should get guaranteed money. Totally understand it. Most NFL players don't last past year 3.
Yeah. And who wouldn't like guaranteed money, right? I mean, it makes sense. Anyone's going to like that idea. Can't knock anyone for that. But
there's a reason why you don't do it. Like there's a reason why, not just in the NFL, there's a reason why where there's no organization that does it. No. Like they're not going like, hey, I want to just pay you $80,000 up front for your job. I'm just going to pay it all to you in January.
Yeah.
So here's your fully guaranteed $80,000, regardless of how you perform throughout the year, and regardless of how well you do your job. Like no organization in the world does that.
No, it wouldn't make sense.
I don't know.
And the players want to say that they're the ones taking all the risk, health wise and all that kind of stuff. And there's certainly truth to that. But like any other job, you get paid when you show up to work. And if you can't show up to work, and I don't care what that reason is, if you can't show up to work, you don't get paid. And whether that was, I was in a car accident, I'm laid up in the hospital, like whether it's, hey, my car broke down, I don't have any way to get to work. They don't have, freaking Ubers where I live or something. Like whatever your excuse would be, it's like, hey man, if you can't show up, no problem. But I got to get someone else in here then, and I got to pay that person. So I'm not going to pay you to not be here. And, I understand players wanting to get paid and wanting to get paid no matter what, but, there's still some amount of common sense. There's not much left when it comes to professional sports in general, and certainly not with the NFL. There has to be some amount of common sense when it comes to understanding of contracts.
Well, yeah. And if you go, well, we're the ones that are at risk. We're the ones playing the game. Oh, absolutely, of course. But you kind of understood that when you took up football as a profession.
100%.
So you can't go like, hey, man, this is shocking to me. Like we got to the NFL and I just was not aware that this was a full contact game. And now I don't know.
Me. Yeah.
These guys hit hard. And like, I wasn't ready for that. And now you're asking me to put my body on the line. Like it's different if you're like an administrative assistant and you show up and they want you to be a part of Fight Club.
Right.
And you're like, well, I mean, you're paying me $13 an hour. I don't know that I necessarily want to be part of. And if you're going to ask me to be part of Fight Club, I feel like I need to ask for some more money.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, you're telling me I can't talk about it, and I feel like now I'm keeping secrets on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, interesting trade scenario here.
So this is going to be this is what I wanted to get into. So, some breaking news. As we almost like, I mean, this is minutes before we started this recording, minutes before we went live here tonight. Breaking news in the NFL. Christian McCaffrey traded from the Panthers to the San Francisco 49ers. This is a bit of a surprise. The Niners were definitely a dark horse when it came to getting. You did not hear them being discussed whatsoever as a place for McCaffrey. Look, it's an interesting move. And I will say this, the news is so breaking. All we know is 4 draft picks. Like we know that he got traded. Oh, now? Okay, it's come out. Go ahead. Yep. What do we got?
So I got the picks. It looks like 49ers sent 4 picks Carolina per multiple reports. The Panthers get from San Francisco a 2nd round, a 3rd round, and a 4th round in 2023, along with a 5th round in 2024.
Okay. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I mean, look, they're going to be wiped out this upcoming season.
Yeah.
But if they're any good, they know that their pick would be a low first anyway. So they'll keep that. and they'll lose a second, third, and fourth. I mean, the fifth, that's not going to be too big of an issue for them the following year. Second, third, and fourth for Christian McCaffrey. I mean, look, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be a difference maker on that team. I mean, one of the first, the first comment I made was, wow, Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel.
And Deebo,
I mean,
yep.
Ain't no telling what's going to happen with that football. So that is an interesting one.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I think it's a good move for the Panthers.
Oh, you got to get something. You got to give value. That whole team they need to unload at this point.
Yeah. So I think it's a really smart move for them. I mean, like, they know they're not they know they're not competitive,
right?
And you have the Rams, who are, I mean, we're 3-3 at this point.
I believe
the Rams
so.
Are. So if you're looking at the Rams, and they're going, man, we're 3-3. We probably should be 5-1 or 4-2. Is this going to make us that much more unstoppable? That we can really change this. It's possible.
Yeah. Look, I mean, there's no doubt that a Christian McCaffrey can be a difference maker on any team. The guy's an absolute weapon. And then when you look at that with everything else they have, and I mean, look, the knock on Garoppolo is he doesn't have the strongest arm. Well, man, you don't need to if you're throwing swing passes to McCaffrey in the flats. I mean, that's a pretty nice position to be in.
Yeah, you're giving opposing teams a whole lot to handle.
Yeah,
I mean, Deebo is a whole lot to handle anyway. But now you got Kittle at your tight end spot, and now you throw in McCaffrey, and it could be a game changer. I think it's a good move for both teams. Yeah. Carolina wasn't going anywhere, and they hadn't got anything really out of McCaffrey the last 2 years. Just constant injury. So for them,
he's had a lot of health issues,
and so he comes back. He has a couple really decent games, and I mean, he had a good game to set. Just let's unload him, but the sell high. You know what I'm saying? Let's get rid of him. So it's a good move.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I mean, I have absolutely no idea how it's all going to play out because the first part of this is McCaffrey has to be able to stay healthy.
Has to be able to stay healthy.
And by all accounts, he seems to be right now. So, if he can stay healthy. Look, that's going to be a very interesting thing. You look at the Niners, and they've dropped some games. I mean, gosh, who did they lose to this past Sunday? That was it was a nobody team. Was it Atlanta?
Atlanta won. I'm trying to think if it was.
I'm just, for some reason, I'm drawing a blank. It might have been Seattle. I don't remember. But anyway, they lost to someone they have no. Huh?
So you have a loss against the Falcons.
Right.
Where they only put up 14 points. You got a loss, and this was a hurtful one. You got a loss to the Broncos, where you only put up 10 points. And then you got to win against the Rams. Then of course you blow out the Panthers. You got the Chiefs coming up this week. And so if you're looking at it, you go, okay, we had a loss against you got to win that game. But if they're going, man, this is the problem. We can't put up enough points. Like, we are inconsistent with the number of points we're putting up.
Yeah.
1 week we put up 37 against the Panthers, but then we're putting up 10 against the Broncos. So, I mean, so there must be looking at this thing going like, we are this piece away from having a consistent offense that can really do some damage.
Well, and who are they running out there? Is it still is it Raheem Mostert that the Niners are been using at running back? I just don't call it East Coast bias if you want, but I just I don't really I'm not always tied in to every roster change that happens with West Coast teams.
No doubt. I'm looking at their roster. I'm at their website here, so I'm looking at the roster. You got Jeff Wilson Jr.
Okay.
It says he's first on the running back depth chart.
Interesting.
Okay. Tyrion Davis-Price, Jordan Mason, Marlon Mack.
Wow.
Is what they're showing at the running back spot.
Boy, Okay. So yeah, that's ugly. So, I mean, it makes sense if you're the Niners, not that any of those players can't play decently within that offense, but look, if you get an opportunity to get a Christian McCaffrey, I mean, it's a no-brainer on every level. So, and look, I mean, they're in win now mode, right? Like very, very much in win now mode. And so if they have this opportunity, I mean, there's probably no other move they could make right now as a team that would help them more than this one. There's no one else you're going to trade for at this point to be able to.
No.
I mean, the only name that you're hearing tossed around a little bit, but never to them, was Odell Beckham Jr., who I still believe, and we talked about it last night on our show here, on You Get the Horn show, that we all largely believe that he will end up going to Kansas City and join the Chiefs. And so, outside of that, and honestly, McCaffrey, if he's healthy, has the ability to be much more impactful in the right offense. So, yeah, it's a big move. And look, on one hand, the biggest thing that I'm happy about is that he didn't end up going to the Buffalo Bills or, someone like that within the AFC. I did not want to see the rich get richer, when it comes to being able to pull down a Christian McCaffrey. I mean, there was a lot of concern in the entire AFC. If this guy goes to Buffalo, season's over in the AFC. You know who's going to the Super Bowl.
Well, and even on the wide receiver front, I mean, you're not. It's not like you're running 2 or 3 guys in your squad that are killing it. Debo's just you take Debo out. Can Brandon Ayuk carry it?
He's a fair question.
He has 25 receptions, 320 yards, 3 touchdowns, averaging 12.8 a catch, I think. So he's doing decent. But it feels like it sounds like an off phrase, but you always throw out the single point of failure concept, and you're like, okay, well, I think if you lose Debo, there's nobody else in your offense that's even quarterback included that's really going to carry this thing. So
no, yeah, agreed. I mean, this is a one-dimensional offense for San Francisco right now. And I just want to say, for anyone who's listening to the show right now, who's joined us live, so yes, this is a Thursday Night Football reaction show. We've talked a good bit about the Arizona Cardinals and the New Orleans Saints. But we just had a breaking news happen just before we came on, which is Christian McCaffrey getting traded from the Carolina Panthers over to the San Francisco 49ers. And so we are currently discussing just the impact that that's going to have on the Niners, on the NFC, on really, honestly, the entire NFL at this point. I think it's going to be substantial, again, if he's healthy. I mean, if we go back just a few years ago, 2 years, 3 years ago, Christian McCaffrey was really considered to be a top, 3 running back in the NFL as an overall weapon. I mean, look at the fantasy points. This guy's, catching that ball out of the backfield nonstop. I mean, he was just, he was touching the ball so much and in so many different ways, adding such a dimension to the offense. So the injuries with him have definitely taken a toll. But if this guy can get back into, early career form, and I don't know that he can, but if he can, then, oh man, I mean, that's going to get interesting.
It may be worth it just for the threat that he brings. I mean, you look at San Francisco has a top ranked defense in the league. I mean, they are allowing like 250 yards, 255 yards a game is what they're allowing. And so, I mean, they got the defense side locked down. So they're literally, I mean, we're Ravens fans. And so we go, okay, we know what this is like. Have it just stack your defense and don't screw up on offense. And you can make it happen with a solid run game that can grind out the clock, that can keep the other offense off the field. And you may have a 6-point, you may win with those 14-point games and the 17-point games. Yeah. Just because you're not screwing up and you're eating up clock and so if they're looking at McCaffrey going, he's going to give some first downs, he's going to extend some drives, he's going to make you not triple team Debo, and Kittle. And so it's going to open up your entire playbook, and we may be able to score another 3 to 5 points a game. And if you're them, you may go, that may be all we need to push us really into the upper echelon. And if your defense keeps playing like it is, that's quite possible.
Agreed. So, I mean, look, nobody's going to want to have to play them. And look, not only this, it's the right time in the season to make this move. We're 6 games in, right? We're going into week 7. I mean, this is the time. You've got this. I mean, assuming that they're going to be a playoff team as they plan to be, you've got plenty of time to ease him into the offense, plenty of time to get him learning the playbook and, really hitting their stride as they come to the end of the season when they're going to need to make that run and then getting into the postseason. Yeah, it's a great move. It's a great move. And honestly, I'm surprised and I'm very curious. Was this move made in him going to San Francisco? Did it happen because they offered more than anyone else? Or was no one else really making an offer? Because I hear a second, third, a fourth, and a fifth, and it's like, boy, it sounds like a lot. But in reality, it's not that much if he's good and he's healthy. I think it's a great trade for the Panthers because they need draft depth, right? They need picks at this point. You're totally rebuilding this team inside out, top down. So with that being the case, you look at this and you go, okay, well, if that's is that the most? How many offers were there? What else were people offering? Because when I look at that and I go, boy, a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth. Oh, okay, I can think of probably 6 or 8 different teams that should have been willing to part with that amount of draft capital. Again, assuming a healthy McCaffrey. So, I'm very curious. Very curious if anyone offered more.
Yeah, it seems like the Niners are trying to really follow the Rams blueprint from last year. Like, we're just going to go all in and hope this all works out. And we got one shot. We feel like our team is right there on the fringe. We're 3-3, but really should be 6-0. And we're 5-1. And they really are. I mean, they really very well could be. I think Garoppolo is good enough to manage the game if he's not asked to do too much. Just give the ball to McCaffrey, get it to Debo, and let them do what they do, because those are the guys. They are just playmakers. So, and this is how interesting the Thursday night game was. We've spent more time talking about this trade than the Thursday night game. It's so good. I am looking forward to next Thursday night. I think that's going to be the first good game of the year. So we are looking forward to that.
Yeah,
it's funny.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I'll say it's funny because even the announcers, I mean, you have Al Michaels, Herb Street, they sound just absolutely miserable calling these games.
Yes. They hate life.
No, just constant little digs and insulting. Like, well, hey, I mean, at least they haven't punted. That's something new. Like just these little these little digs they throw out. They just sound miserable. Like they sound like, I mean, they do not want to be there, which is fair because nobody else watching the game wants to watch it. No. And they're like, the difference is we can turn it off.
That's right. They're stuck there regardless.
They have to sit through it. Yeah.
Very true. Well, it's funny because, one of the big thing that tonight may end up being known for on the larger national scale would be Taylor Swift. Her new album, Midnights, just would have launched here just a few minutes ago. And she had a little tie-in with Amazon that she came on in the third quarter, the pre-recorded thing, and a little teaser trailer for some of the things that she's worked on with this new album. And, it was funny because normally in those situations, you would think, the artist is going to the channel, the studio, whoever, to be able to like go on there and plug their stuff. I feel like with the way that we've seen these Thursday Night Football games, it's more likely that Amazon went to Taylor and said, hey, would you be willing to come on here and talk about something? Because we're trying to have anything to get some interest in these games. They're so bad. We're looking to prop this up any way we can. And I mean, look, let's face it, Taylor Swift is the ultimate crutch if it's going to come to any sort of, ratings or attention. They took advantage of it because, boy, was it a disappointing thing. I mean, this has been all over the news, all over, that this thing was going to happen tonight in the third quarter. My wife was very excited for it. she watches and she's like, "Wait, that was it? That was the whole?
That was it. Yeah,
that was. Why did I wait up for that?
Yeah, you gave me some B-roll. An upcoming release is what you gave me. Which this is an interesting move because you say that's a shrewd move. I go like, well, she's really popular with young girls.
Yeah,
and you're putting her on the third quarter of a Thursday night football game. Like clearly, young girls are not the kingpin. You know what I'm saying? Of the Thursday night audience. Like Amazon Prime's not going like, man, I really hope we get enough 12 to 17-year-olds staying up to watch this game. So really interesting move. I'd be really curious as to see like the ratings this week to last week. And, Amazon Prime had a record number of subscriptions when Amazon signed this deal with the NFL. I'm really curious as if they're going to have a record number of cancellations at this point. But we'll see. We'll see if they turn it around.
Yeah, it is an interesting question. Certainly, we're not going to know the answer for quite some time, but my guess is probably they won't. I don't think they're going to see huge, cancellations. They could, but the reality is most people, if you just signed up, you probably wanted Amazon. It's kind of bizarre that you don't have it. So like who's been holding out for this moment? It's always a little strange to see like, who's the person who's just like, okay, fine. Now you have the NFL. I guess I'll go ahead and sign up. But once you're in it, because you pay, for most people, you're paying up front for the year. And you don't have to, but for most people, that's how they do it. And so since that's how they do it, I think, chances are people are going to stick around.
I think you're right. And there's Amazon gives you more than enough value for, between Prime days and free shipping and Prime Video and Prime, they throw it all at you. I just think it was, I don't think it was a shrewd move I think it was a desperate move by Thursday Night Football to get Taylor Swift on there. I think it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Knowing your target audience is probably a 35 to 45-year-old man.
Right. Well, look, it gets people talking. It gets some people tuned in that maybe wouldn't have checked it out otherwise.
And maybe
my guess is second half of Thursday Night Football games, the ratings are the lowest. And so they put it in the third quarter very strategically to be able to keep people engaged in the game, boosting some ratings later into the game and stuff. Who knows, right? I mean, it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, but Taylor Swift?
I mean, there's no one bigger.
Yeah, well, I think no one. Yeah, I think she's huge. But God, if you give me a 38-year-old man that cares about Taylor Swift, I'm giving you a man that's probably watching this game in his mother's basement.
Right? Yeah, it's not a good situation if that's happening. Look,
there are no male music artists out there that would connect with a primarily male audience,
right?
That could. Does it even have to be a musical drop? Like, is there? You mean there's nothing else? Amazon's like, we got nothing. These games have been terrible. The best thing I can figure is that my 12-year-old daughter loves Taylor Swift. Let's get her on.
Yeah.
It
probably that was probably part of it. I mean, look, I will say this: it got people talking. For better or for worse, it accomplished that goal, and. Look, at this point, I don't think they're in a position to turn down any buzz, any ratings that they can get. They're going to take.
Yeah, because Prime has been it's been a rating success.
Definitely.
It's been good for them ratings wise. It has not been a critical success. No one is happy with the product you're putting out. But people are still tuning in, probably because there's nothing else to do on a Thursday night at that time of night.
Well, that's true too. And look, it's the NFL. I mean, we can't overlook that. I mean, people will always want to see what happens in the NFL, at least for the foreseeable future.
Sure.
And So when you have that kind of, helping your cause, it starts to get interesting, right? I mean, they have some things going on. These games are not good. Like most of their games have not been good or interesting games, but they're still in a scenario where you go, okay, well, look, can we make something out of this? At the end of the day, Taylor Swift going on there, I definitely think is way more for Thursday Night Football than it is for Taylor Swift. 100%. I mean, this is Taylor Swift does not need Thursday Night Football in order to be able to build any hype for this album.
No, it's Bezos going, hey, can you just do me a solid here?
Yeah.
I'm drowning.
Yeah, my money's getting tied up in this, and I'd like to see something good happen.
I am losing millions, which literally means nothing to me.
Yeah, it's like
I have misplaced millions before, and not even worried about it. Like I haven't even gone back to look for it.
No, left it in my pants pocket. Ended up doing the laundry and found it in there. Yeah. No, I'll tell you one other thing too. Money, yeah. And I do. I know we'll start to wrap this up. This is probably moving past instant reaction and into just a full show, full episode of You Get the Horns. But one thing that I thought was an interesting thing, I was thinking about this today, and you bringing up Jeff Bezos kind of made me think of this. With everything happening in Washington, with the Commanders, with Dan Snyder, doesn't it start to seem like a very convenient option, as it's seeming like owners are starting to turn against Dan Snyder and trying to see if they can force his hand to sell the team? Doesn't it seem like a very convenient option to possibly be able to have someone like a Jeff Bezos, who already owns the Washington Post newspaper, who lives in Washington, D.C., and is already a partner of the NFL, be able to buy up the Commanders, particularly at a time when they're getting ready to have a new stadium built.
Yeah.
And it could truly be a complete fresh start with a brand new stadium that will probably be finished in 2025. And
just limitless money.
Yeah.
I mean,
all the money in the world to restore them to a prestige franchise.
Yeah.
Already a partner of the NFL. We've seen it many times how close and chummy he's been with Roger Goodell at some of these Thursday games. They're sitting next to each other, laughing and joking. It's just starting to feel like, boy, that could be an answer to a problem for the NFL. And it only further entrenches Amazon and NFL's relationship. And I don't see really a conflict of interest there because, again, Jeff Bezos has stepped down as CEO. He would be buying it with his money. There are lots of NFL owners who have business interests that align with the NFL, so I don't really see any major issues there. I just feel like
for the NFL.
Yep.
Great for the NFL. It'd be great for the Commanders. It would be terrible for Bezos. I mean, because he's already kind of like, you're kind of weird, dude. I feel like people would hate him even more. Like, come on, dude. Like, you have to buy an NFL team now on top of everything else you own. Like, you own it. You're building spaceships, and now you got to buy an NFL team. And yeah, I think he draws the same kind of.
The only thing I'll say is he's taking it from Dan Snyder. So a lot of people, even if they feel like they may be jealous or they may not like the guy, but boy, he seems like a much better alternative than Dan Snyder.
Oh,
so
100%.
He's one of the only scenarios. This is one of the only scenarios that I feel like Jeff Bezos stepping in and buying the team that people would be happy about because it accomplishes the end goal of finishing off Dan Snyder as an owner.
Well, the Washington fan base would be ecstatic. And
could you not be?
Oh yeah, you could. You heard it here first, everybody. Just on when you get the horns. You heard the prediction first. We're going to play this back in the future.
Absolutely.
And you're going to spot
this. You better believe it.
I think that would be a killer move. I think he's going to draw some hatred, just like Elon did buying Twitter.
Sure.
It's like, really, dude? Like, do you need to? So I feel like you're going to get some of that from him. But he don't care. I mean, what does he care?
No.
It's like,
And honestly, I'm drawing a blank on the gentleman's name, but heirs to the Walmart family fortune there are the ones that bought the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
So, you look at this and you go, okay, look, you can't have it both ways. If you're the NFL and if you're fans of the NFL and you want to see this league, this game continue to be this hyper growth, amazing, explosive situation, all these amazing things happening. It's the biggest thing there is, and jersey sales, all kinds of merchandise, everything else. Man, the value then of teams is going to be escalating to such a degree that it dramatically limits the number of people who would be able to buy a team. So therefore, it's going to be people that aren't necessarily the most popular. It doesn't matter like what your thoughts are on it. It's hey man, we have a very small pool of people that can afford to buy an NFL team. So the ones that can, we're looking for someone that we can approve. And boy, Jeff Bezos, I feel like could glide right through.
Yeah, owners would be swooning over him. All the other owners, they'd be more than happy to have someone like him.
I will say I've not heard this said by anyone. So there may be some reason that this could never happen because I've never heard this discussed. I'm sure someone has said it somewhere along the line, but it's not something that I've heard. And there may be a very good reason why people don't talk about it as an option. But I just feel like the cards, all the stars are aligning for this to be able to work out. Again, Bezos is already in Washington. He owns the Washington Post. He lives in D.C., at least part-time. He has very strong relations with the NFL and the commissioner and all the money in the world, and clearly has an interest in the NFL. So, I mean, this is just, in my mind, the next logical step. So take that for what it's worth.
Well, this is your first time saying this and thinking about this. I just Googled this real quick. This is back in February 2021 that there were reports that he was interested in purchasing the Washington football team.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow. Now, we don't know if that's true, but there were reports you're saying at that time.
Reports. Yeah. There were reports that he was interested in it and interested in maybe a number of teams, but specifically the Washington football team. And man, if you're the NFL, Rodgers, if I'm Roger, I'm calling up Jeff going, hey, if we can get you 3/4 votes, I can guarantee that. Would you be willing to get this thing? And they pull that trigger pretty quick, man. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think it could be a game changer. And honestly, it's a game changer for a franchise that needs the game changed, right? I mean, again, we talked about this a little bit. We've talked about this before. It's kind of a weird situation that I have some of the connections and relations that I have with, of all teams, the Washington Commanders. So when this stuff, comes out, I mentioned, I think it's last night's show, I've never met Dan Snyder. I've hung out a few times with Jason Wright, the VP of the team. I've met Tanya Snyder on a few occasions. Always been super nice, super friendly with me. Had a great conversation with her. So all these people have always been fantastic to me. Outside of that, I mean, I see what everyone else sees, right? Like I read the things in the news. I know the things that everyone else sees, and it's all bad. And then you look at it and you go, they got one of the worst stadiums in the NFL at this point. FedEx Field is
so bad,
incredibly dated and just in terrible condition.
It's just so hard to get into, to get out of. The parking situation's a nightmare. Back to Thursday night. It's not going to get any easier. The games aren't going to get a whole lot better. I think we got a good game coming up with the Ravens and the Bucks.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's because we're biased. I just think Ravens have always had a bit of a rivalry with Tom Brady, and you may not say rivalry because they beat us more than we beat them, but at least I feel like that may be an entertaining game. Outside of next week, I don't know that there's another good Thursday night game. There's two. Well, I mean,
or they have the Bears on 4 more times or something.
Well, so you got us next week. Then you got the Eagles and Texans, which should be just an absolute blowout by the Eagles.
Yeah. Oh, Eagles.
You got the Falcons and Panthers.
Oh God.
On the 10th.
Falcons.
This might be an entertaining game. You got the Titans and the Packers.
Okay. All right. Maybe. We'll see.
That might be worth it. And then the following week you have the Bills and the Patriots.
Wow.
a chance of it being remotely, maybe a little bit competitive for a quarter or two before the Bills pull it out. Outside of that, man, there's just not a whole lot happening. You get the Raiders and the Rams. I mean, I'm sure there's some ways that you can spin that matchup to try to make it interesting. With LA and the Raiders and history and all this stuff. Seahawks and the Niners, that might be an interesting game only because of this trade.
Yeah, right.
And people want to see that duo. The Jets and the Jaguars.
Hey, that's a sneaky competitive game. That's a very sneaky competitive game. It sounds terrible on paper, but that could actually be an interesting game to watch. I won't watch it probably, or maybe just watch the fourth quarter of it. But unless there's a Taylor Swift album that comes out that same day, maybe I'll tune in. But outside of that, I don't see it happening. But it could be an interesting competive game.
Jeff Bezos was like, "Hey, I need the deep cuts because
do you have B-sides at all?
I need you to come out with another album on December 22nd. I got the Jets and the Jaguars. I need
it's a great Christmas gift. Come out with a Christmas album. I need you to go way in the back of the vault. I don't care if they're recordings that your parents made of you as a child. I need whatever you got, man. I need to call in the cavalry here. It's almost Christmas, and Amazon might go bankrupt because these games are so bad. Yeah.
Get another really popular female that would boost this thing. Is Madonna available? Maybe
I heard good things.
A duet with Madonna and Cher. Will the kids like that? Will the 40-year-old men watching this thing really clamor over that? I don't know. The last week might be good. December 29th, you got the Cowboys and the Titans. The Titans on a 3-game winning streak, and they seem to have gotten their act together a little bit lately. And so I'd be interested to see if they continue. I think Titans are going to continue to move up those power rankings. That's my prediction.
I'd be curious to see if Malik Willis is playing by then.
Would not be surprised if you see the Titans in a 5-2 scenario, 6-2 scenario, like reeling off 5-6 games in a row. I think that's very possible.
Schedule's in their favor. I mean, they could rattle off some wins. They're a tough physical team. This is a team that always gets better in cold weather. They run the ball well. We know what they have with Derrick Henry. So they get better this time of year. This is the time that they start to become more dangerous. They get in their rhythm. So, I mean, I hope they don't, but they could.
Hope they don't, 100%. And so predictions for next Thursday's game?
Well, that's going to get interesting because, you always have to take everything into consideration here. And Brady just came off of a humiliating loss where he was seen on the sideline berating his offensive lineman, loses to the Steelers, which, again, how? And then you have Kenny Pickett, who has a concussion. Mitch Trubisky comes in. I mean, there's 99 times out of 100, the Bucs win that game, and it didn't happen. And then, of course, you find out later that Brady had skipped their practices to go to Bob Kraft's wedding, owner of the Patriots, who, of course, is marrying some lady 35, 40 years younger than him.
40 years younger.
Yeah, Brady skips practices to be able to go there. And then, again, almost an insult to Pittsburgh because it's kind of like, man, I don't even need to practice. We're going to show up. We're going to win this game. And then they lose. He flips out. Comes into Thursday night, man, he's going to be fired up. Where's the game? Do you know?
Let's see here. Yeah, he might be fired up, but I don't know that it would matter if he's fired up. So, it's at Raymond James Stadium. So this is going to be in –
Okay. So next week, Thursday Night Football, we're in Tampa. Look, I'm still going to go with the Ravens on this. I still think I think that the Ravens are going to start getting it into gear. Could be wrong. God knows I have been, but I think it's going to start to shake out.
Well, here's where I think it's going to be a blowout, and not because I'm super pro Baltimore, which obviously I am. But if you start looking at the points that the Bucs have put up, so week 1 they put up 19 points. Week 2 they put up 20 points. Week 3 they lose to the Packers. They put up 12 points. Week 5 against the Falcons, you put up 21 points. They put up 18 against Pittsburgh. I mean, really the only game that they cracked 30 was against the Chiefs, and they lost 41-31. And so they have not proven to be an effective offense to me at all, to where there's just nothing about any of their games that makes me think, okay, yeah, they have another switch that they could turn on, and they're gonna flip it, and all of a sudden Brady's gonna be like Brady of old. We've talked about this in the past. I mean, Peyton Manning was Peyton Manning until he wasn't.
Right.
I mean, he's throwing 55 touchdowns, 40-some touchdowns, and then just hit a wall.
Yeah.
And there was no gradual decline. It was competitive. Oh man, I'm leaning on my defense 100%.
No, you're right.
And I don't think I mean, the Bucs obviously have a strong defense. Is it strong enough to overcome zero offense? I mean, if you're averaging what they're averaging points per game, I don't know that. I think unless it's just a really off game for the Ravens, and the Bucs just figure out Lamar and they figure out us and they put it to us on the defensive end, which is possible. They may be competitive.
Yeah.
Even then, I don't know that the Bucs are going to keep up with us. So, I haven't been high on the Ravens this year. We've had our issues with them, struggling. But I mean, I texted you earlier. I think it's going to be like a 38-14 kind of game. I think it's going to be or a 38-21 kind. Like I feel like it's going to be a beat. Watch it be like a decisive struggle. Win. Yeah, watch it be like 9-6.
Exactly.
Or something. But I think it's going to be a pretty decisive win.
Nice. All right. Well, hey man, I'd love to see that. We need to see that at this point. One thing that I'm going to leave you with as we wrap up, in the history of retirements and unretirements, has there ever been a worse decision made than Tom Brady coming back this year? I mean, who has ever done it worse?
I mean, the only thing you could possibly compare it to is Jordan going to the Wizards.
Yeah.
As far as
and even then, he didn't lose his entire family over it.
No, he lost them previous years. Like
they were long gone.
They were long gone by the time he got to the Wizards. I think by the time he got to the Wizards, he's like, I'm just looking for a distraction because I just don't want to be around them. I mean, on terms of just levels of greatness, and Tom Brady is Brady's obviously been the. I mean, don't like the guy, but it's hard to argue that he's the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yeah.
So you have the greatest. That's the only thing you could compare it to. But I think Jordan understood that he wasn't going to be competitive going to the Wizards. He hoped that we got a couple high draft picks and you got a couple guys that may make it competitive.
Surprise some people.
Some athleticism, and they did well.
Yeah.
For a 40-year-old man,
dude, it's a conversation for another time. But if you do a deep dive on the Wizards at that time and Jordan's stats during that time, dude, this is an all-star player. Like, I mean, and again, it's a 40-year-old, retired guy coming out. I mean, it's easy to say, well, it's Michael Jordan. Dude, time catches up to all of us. And this guy's still out there putting up points. He's fighting through injuries and stuff like that. So, there's a lot there. But I think with Brady, there's a little bit of a difference in that Brady was in a scenario where he seemed untouchable on a personal level, where it was just like he seemed to have this great life. He had it so well protected and curated that there were just no cracks in the armor whatsoever. He seemed to have this perfect life, this perfect family, this amazing career. And it just looked like he was just going to ride off into the sunset. And he did. And then he turned around and rode back. And then it all starts falling apart. And now you see him and he looks terrible. He's flipping out on offensive linemen on the sideline, going through divorce proceedings with his wife. It's just every single bad thing. And I don't know, man, this is maybe just what it is when you wear out your welcome, and you stay a little too long at the party. I don't know, but I never thought it would happen like this. And it swung quick, really quick. And it's not a coincidence too that, he comes back and immediately after unretiring, they have all this insanity around the head coaching thing, which clearly it's very obvious that Brady forced Bruce Arians out. That's more than clear. And he put in a coach that he could completely control in Todd Bowles. You had the Dolphins being guilty of tampering with Brady and trying to sneak this whole thing of him retiring. That kind of, I'm not going to say tarnishes his legacy or anything, but it muddies the water on what was going to happen. He clearly wanted to be out of Tampa. He was going to be going to Miami. Then Brian Flores blows that up, so now he's stuck in Tampa. So Arians gets pushed out, Todd Bowles gets put in, and what is the first thing that Brady does? He starts taking days off during training camp. Never in his whole career has he ever done this before. He starts taking days off and saying, well, I'm not going to show up on Wednesdays. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. He's skipping practice to go to weddings and stuff. Weddings of the owner of the team you used to play for, like, who chose to get married during the football season, makes no sense whatsoever. Like, you don't need to go to that.
I don't hate people going to weddings. I hate you going to a meaningless wedding.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing meaningful about an 80-year-old man marrying a 40-year-old. Like, you're not going like, oh man, they're in the 20s and this is going to be forever.
Yeah.
I mean, she's got a sweet gig and whatever. I mean, he's about 3
It'll be
losses.
forever for him.
That's true. That's true. He's about, I would say Brady's probably 3 to 4 losses away from, I mean, he's looking rough. 3 to 4 losses away from looking like Skinny Pete from Breaking Bad. Like, you put a beanie on that dude.
That's right.
And let his Florida tan show. Just slip him some of that blue crystal and let
it is not a good look.
It's
just for anyone who's trying to envision this or maybe didn't watch Breaking Bad, it isn't a good look, particularly for a professional athlete.
Yeah, Google Skinny Pete. You'll get yourself a good laugh if you're watching this and you're not familiar with Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
I might need to bust out my Photoshop skills and bring that to the next.
There you go.
Get the horns.
Yeah. We'll post that on TikTok, YouTube. We'll have Tom Brady, Skinny Pete memes all over the place. So. All right, man. Well, I guess we've gone on long enough. We've entertained the people enough. We've given America more than enough entertainment, more than they deserve, and more than they wanted. I'm pretty confident of that. I'm sure it's more than wanted, more than they deserve. So, any last words here before I play us out?
No, man. Go Ravens next week, Thursday Night Football.
There you go. That's right. Love to hear that. All right, so we covered a lot tonight. You Get the Horn show. We'll be back next week. I believe it's next Tuesday night that we will be live streaming. So we encourage everyone, seriously, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're dropping content constantly. We do multiple long form shows. We break down tons of smaller content. Got a ton of stuff on TikTok as well. Both stations, both channels are at You Get the Horns Show. That's the show. You Get the Horns Show. YouTube, TikTok. Check us out. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow. And then if you're on YouTube, man, turn on the freaking notifications because we're dropping stuff constantly.
Don't be a jerk.
Yeah. Don't be a jerk. Seriously.
Don't do that. Don't be that guy.
Nobody likes that dude. Nobody likes that type of person. And honestly, if you're a lady, don't be that guy. Just don't do it. It doesn't make sense. So if you're on YouTube, turn on your notifications. Make sure you got your notifications on so you can see the stuff when we drop it. Because as you saw tonight, breaking news, Christian McCaffery, we bring it to you when it happens. So stuff breaks in real time. Don't be the Russell Wilson
of YouTube subscribers.
Exactly. Nobody likes that dude. So anyway, like, subscribe, follow. Make sure you turn on your notifications. We'll be coming back to you soon. In the meantime, have a good night, everybody.
Take care.